The saying goes, shoot for the moon. If you miss, you'll land amongst the stars. But wait, they will tell you to aim lower. Not because you can't, but because they didn't. Because the unknown is loud and their fear is even louder. They'll tell you to want less, to shrink your reach, to trade your fire for comfort. They'll ask, why risk falling when you can learn to love the floor? They'll talk about gravity as though it's gospel, as though the pull downward is the only truth that matters. But what they'll never say, what they may never know, is that some are born with the stars in their eyes. Some are built to leap even when there is no net. Some would rather break trying to touch the sky than spend a lifetime kneeling to what is safe. No, you'll feel it. In the quiet moments when no one's watching, when the world is still and the spark returns, that flicker, that impossible thing you're told to put away. And in those moments, you'll wonder, is it foolish to reach? To stretch for something that no one else sees? To climb a ladder that completely disappears into clouds? To follow a path with no name, no trail, and no map? But what they never say is that the map is made by the one who walks. The trail is born of footsteps, not instruction. And the moon, well, maybe that moon was never the prize. Rather, it's the decision, the declaration, the raising of the hand to the sky and saying, I don't know what waits around the corner, but I will go anyway. And as for them, they won't understand that. They won't see the stars you passed through or the galaxies you shaped with every setback. They won't feel the cold of the void you dared to enter or the warmth of that first light after darkness. To them, you missed. You aimed high and you missed. But what they misunderstand is that you became something in the process. Falling through the stars, it still means you touched them. It still means you left the ground. It still means you learned to fly. See, they'll write stories about people like you without ever realizing they once warned you not to try. Because it's easy to measure life by trophies. It's easy to count only wins. When truth be told, meaning is found in motion, in becoming, in reaching beyond what was and towards the infinite upside. And no medal can capture that. No applause can echo long enough to match the silence you broke just by beginning. You'll lose people. You'll shed skin. You'll bury old versions of yourself that begged you to stay. But with each step, you'll remember the moon was never promised, only the journey. So keep climbing. Even when they laugh, even when they don't get it, even when they turn away, even when the night offers no light back, climb. Because what they call failure, you'll know as transformation. What they label detour, you'll see as design. And one day, and that day will arrive, they'll look up. They'll see a light shooting across the night sky that they cannot explain. They'll call it lucky, they'll call it magic, they'll call it miraculous, but you'll know. You'll know there was nothing miraculous about it. It was the fire in your lungs, the shaking hands that still reached out, the tired feet that didn't quit, the dream you protected when the world told you to let go. So when they tell you to aim lower, smile. Let them. Because they never saw the stars you were dancing through. Hey gang, Eddie here. So I've been building something alongside your world within. It's called AGNS, Always Grateful, Never Satisfied. If you've been listening to the podcast, you know exactly what that's referring to. That duality of appreciating the present moment, but also not being afraid to ask the world for more, for diving fully into your potential. And I'd love for you to be a part of this journey as we build and build and build. I have a free newsletter, agnsnewsletter.com, where you'll get daily motivation, monthly challenges, as well as updates on all the exciting things we have coming around the corner. So if you're so inclined and you'd like to be part of this journey, I'd be honored for you to sign up. Link will be below. Look forward to seeing you there. You were made to break, to be imperfect, intentionally reckless. You were made to break. And thank God, because I want you to imagine a world where you never cracked. Imagine a world where you never had to pick yourself up and put yourself back together. How truly tragic that would be. Why? Well, it's in the tearing down and building up that we sculpt beauty, that we chisel away the monotony and create a meaning of sorts. Like muscles at the gym, stressed, taxed, intentionally put through the rigors of resistance. Micro tears that teach it, I can not only endure, but I can strengthen. That by challenging the status quo, I get a tomorrow that promises more than today. So break. Allow yourself to crack. In fact, there's a saying that it's from our cracks that the light shines through, that meaningful things, more often than not, were born of broken things. That it wasn't being sheltered from life, but thrust upon it, that the true magic materialized. It took me years to learn this. And it is, I've been surprised to discover, something that must be relearned every day. My mind resists and my body fights back. It doesn't want me to be broken. My head wants to navigate away from broken things because broken is flawed, right? Broken is imperfect, you know? And isn't perfect the goal? Getting a 10 of 10? Highlight reel, filters, elevator speeches, accolades. Who the hell has time to crack in a world that demands smooth edges and shiny surfaces? So I asked myself, at least until about 26, when I first learned that cracking, breaking, disassembling is the precursor to all excellence, the precursor to progress in and of itself, the precursor to anything other than staring out a window and hoping life presents you what you want. One of the most dangerous words I've come to know is perfect. Because perfect is a defense mechanism. Perfect is a wolf in sheep's clothing. Show me perfection and I'll show you fear. Show me someone who won't go until it's flawless and I'll show you someone who is deeply, deeply afraid. I think our default setting positions us to seek the wrong things because beauty is not perfect. Beauty is bruised knees, scraped elbows. Beauty is hurt pride and a crushed ego. Beauty is getting it wrong, not just once, but over and over again. Because these things allow for the breaking down, and the breaking down is the only thing that invites the building up. So you fear cracks and jagged edges? I fear lacking the courage to let life humble me. I fear clean shoes, predictability, and a life void of criticism. I fear a world where I stay right where I am, untarnished and perfectly assembled. Today and every day after, the goal is to let life crack me wide open. Let the light shine through. Let me build again and again and again from the pile of broken things that I have made. Let me take them and assemble a world that means something. Like a phoenix rising from the ashes to start anew every day. Forget the illusions of perfection. Forget the off-ramps and false security interwoven into what you know now, because you were made for more. You were made to stretch, to explore, to live. You were made to break. Staring off into the distance and saw something that, at least from what I understand, is pretty rare in the Scottsdale area. The sky was so hazy that you could barely see the mountains. A blanket around the infinity that I was so used to staring out at. And what do I know for sure as I gaze into the distance? Well, first and foremost, this immersion into chaos is temporary. Because behind that curtain of fog, there exists clarity. There lives the pristine, there is calm. Just tucked away for the moment. And this haze, it's not confined to the mountains of Scottsdale. In fact, this is the very same haze life has a tendency to drop us directly into the epicenter of the unknown. And here's the thing, when life presents us with this haze, we can be angry, but it won't care. We can scream and complain and project out, but it'll pay no mind. Our emotions and the motives of the haze that surround us are mutually exclusive. The only way to win here is to know that clarity exists behind the curtain, and like a guided missile, walk through the mist until the little shapes start materializing into the recognizable, into everyday life. See, some games are not chess. They're not complex, they are simple. They're about carrying on or not carrying on. Resilience, and that is all. Will you commit to hanging in long enough to capture the skyline that has gifted you peace so many days prior to today? It's not a weather question, or a haze question, or a visibility question. It is a you question. And you get to choose how you'll answer it. Easy, you might think. No, sometimes putting one foot in front of the other is the hardest thing. Shaking hands with the unknown is a taxing thing. It's a courageous thing. But sometimes it is also the only thing. You have to know that right now, no, there is no validation, but I will find some. And sure, there's no road mapped out before me, but I'll blaze my own. And sure, I don't have answers, but the past has proven to me that I can collect them along the way. And what you'll find is that haze, that very cause for discomfort, ends up being an ally. Because through it, we affirm to ourselves that clarity is there and we are beyond capable of capturing it. That when things are their worst, we have the ability to rise to the occasion. That when we don't know, we become manufacturers of solutions. Getting what you want is not a story of navigating paved roads. It's about stepping into the brush and finding a way. Step by step, breath by breath, heartbeat by heartbeat. And so while the temptation may be to look around right now and say, I don't know how this story ends. I don't know how to handle this turbulence, therefore, problem. I invite you to use the unknown, the haze, the chaos, the turbulence as a portal to reality as you see fit. And I invite you through this quote-unquote fog of war to begin again. To rediscover a life well lived. Because not only is it possible, it's who you are. Behind our house, there were rolling hills, as far as the eye could see. And we would run up and down until the sun disappeared over the horizon and we couldn't see our hands in front of our faces. In a sense, it bothers me that 25 years later, I even have to ask why something so simple and elementary could be fun. How something so out in the open could be profound, something so basic. Oh, how we've flipped the script. Today, I build and scratch and claw and fight and chase and seek and climb. But my soul just wants the hill. And you might hear that and think, well, how tragic to live in that gap, to exist without that which you so deeply desire. But let me reframe the scene. I never gave up the hills, and neither did you. They're there, covered in complexity, deemed at some point to be just a little too simple, a little too elementary, so we built on top of them. We laid a foundation of external expectations. We erected structures that would bring us validation. In other words, we built someone else's world on top of our own, called it a day. And as been one of my favorite sayings, two things can be true at once. Moving into the world means responsibility. It means more complexity. But it doesn't negate the fact that the precious things are the simple things. And while we often spend our days fixated on distant horizons looking for those things, I continuously find that they're often under our very feet. The ground we walk on. It might be more conventional to look back on those moments as, childish, as kids doing what kids do, but I see it as more. In fact, I see it as the essence of life, the reason we're here. It need not be abandoned. And when you close your eyes, I wonder what that looks like for you now. The air cycling through your lungs, a smile on your face, your hair blown back by the wind. What is that moment? See, because when that's yours, you ignite. And if you think that's selfish, I have news for you. You pass that light right on to those around you. It comes through in the world you build and the structures you make. When you find those hills again, you give meaning to the meaningless. It's paint on the canvas. It's a melody to the song. And to say, oh, I don't have time for that. It's like saying, I'll breathe later while your head is being held underwater. No, it is the oxygen you need. We get one chance to do this, one ride here. And your gift need be presented to the world. Your heart should race, just like it did when the setting sun was calling you in, and nothing else mattered in the world. The entire universe is rooting for you to find those hills again. You have everything. You are everything you need. I just hope you'll summon the courage to grab it and hold on. Every once in a while, there's a point where you're looking in the mirror and you realize you've let go of the rope, right? You were climbing, you were ascending, and moving on to bigger, better, faster, all the things. But then life happened. Maybe you were traveling, there's disruption, you get sick, you sleep in, right? Hit that alarm clock or that snooze button and you tell yourself just this once. But I think we've been there when once becomes twice becomes 3 times. Suddenly, what was second nature now feels like you're climbing a mountain barefoot. Momentum is a lot like fire. It takes time to build, an effort to cultivate, energy to sustain, but only a moment of neglect to flicker out, right? And once that darkness settles in, you start asking yourself all the wrong questions. Well, what's the point? What if I don't have it in me anymore? Do I even have to live like that? What if I was really never that person to begin with? Because the mind is funny like that. It doesn't fight for your potential, it fights for comfort. It wants to take that temporary stumble and build it into a home. It wants to consistently build walls around you. In fact, I would go as far as to say, there's dissonance between where your heart wants to go, where your soul wants to take you, and where some of the most precious things in life are directing you. Your biology wants you safe. It doesn't need you pushing your limits or maxing out your potential. Societally, it's much easier to blend in, to be average. Even friends and family, the ones that love us most, right? There's innately interest in their part on you being safe and secure, which is fine, but all these things lead you to a status quo, not excellence. Excellence, in my eyes, is something that is derived from the self. It's a journey that you have to green light. And so where am I going with this? Well, I'm just coming out of a, we'll say, less than ideal stretch. It's not a remarkable story. It's not going to knock your socks off, but I think you'll find it relatable, right? Where a few weeks ago, everything was firing on all cylinders in, I want to say, all aspects of life, right? In rhythm, dialed in, early mornings, deep work, hitting the gym, spending time with people I care about, all things good, right? Had my hands on the wheel. And then something so small, so seemingly insignificant knocked me off course. Some type of respiratory virus. Nothing serious, enough to keep me in bed for a few days. But in that time, your discipline, focus, habits, all those things you sort of have to fight to cultivate, they can go out the window. They're allowed to unwind because you're telling yourself you'll get back on track and you need this, right? You deserve this. You work hard, right? So the symptoms go away after 3 days, but energy's a little bit down. And you're looking at the gym and you're going, you need the rest. You're looking at those creative ideas, oh, they can wait. Right? You start sleeping in, start hitting the snooze button. And essentially an active choice to recover becomes an unconscious choice to retreat. At some point, you're not healing anymore, you're hiding. And you feel it, right? Just in your bones, there's less excitement, there's less energy. You sort of know you're lying to yourself and not keeping the word that you gave to yourself. It's a bad feeling. You start to internalize that. People follow through on who they believe themselves to be. That's why every step is so important. It's earning that confidence. It's reaffirming that commitment. And without that, life just feels like it's missing something. And so this morning, a very intentional walk outside changed everything. And I know that's anticlimactic. I know it sounds trivial. Good. That is the point. It's so easy to turn things around, right? But as Jim Rohn has said, it's also very easy to continue the same pattern and same habits. That's why it's so hard to change. Not because change is hard, but because staying the same is so damn easy. But here's the message. Here's what I needed, and here's what I'd love to offer up to you in case you find yourself in one of these slumps, or maybe just not firing on all cylinders. That chapter of life or season where you know you're leaving a part of you on the table. Here it is. Life is not about perfection. It's about returning. Our innate ability to rise from the ashes, like a tide returns to shore, or the sun rises no matter how long the light lingers, like a song finding its melody after the notes have scattered. It was all there. It was never broken. The pieces existed. You just happened to step away from that fire for too long. But fires, they don't permanently die. They just need tending to. So wherever you are, you don't need to rebuild the castle. No, at least not today. And that's important to understand. That's important to know. Because if you convince yourself you have to leap a mile, you'll get discouraged and you'll quit. It's a longevity game. You need to pick up the first stone. That's the beauty of momentum. It doesn't ask for everything at once. Just one step, one action, one promise kept. And perhaps this is me standing at the bottom of the mountain again, looking at that summit as it feels so far away. My legs may be a little weaker than they were 2 weeks ago, but I know how the story goes. I've been here before. And every great comeback, from the small, seemingly trivial, all the way up to tasks as grandiose as the mind can imagine, they all start the same way. They start with choosing